Good evening, friends, and welcome to the 68th session in the series of Analytics Wednesday, which is being brought to you by Sama in coordination with the Canadian High Commission, Trade Commissioner's Office. We are happy to be having Sameer Joshi with us to talk about analytics and the insights for an effective risk management. And as we have seen things over a period of time, risk management is getting more and more mature in organizations. From being just a register or a tick mark oriented activity, it's becoming more and more integrated with decision making and organizations. And I'm sure that Sameer has got a lot to share with us. At Sama Audit, we have been working in the space of analytics for the last 22 years. And we've seen analytics grow and evolve over a period of time. So it just being an extended arm for the auditors, we've looked at analytics becoming more of an exciting sort of a piece of technology. For want of a better word, I'll just limit to that. And I think teams have been associating analytics with a lot of productivity enhancement activities. We are also into caseware working papers where external audit firms automate their entire process using the working paper platform. And caseware is a global leader in that particular space on. So with that brief introduction to Sama, let me have the pleasure of introducing Sameer Joshi. Sameer is a partner of governance, risk and compliance team at Kreston SGCO Advisors LLP. He has more than 25 years of domestic and international risk advisory experience. He's led large internal audits, cost reduction and revenue enhancement reviews, revenue assurance management, process design reviews, regulatory compliance framework reviews, efficiency audits, forensics investigations, and CSR audits. He's advised clients in financial services, IT or ITES entities, telecom, retail, jewelry, manufacturing, engineering, chemicals, pharma, healthcare, logistics, shipping, building materials, and infrastructure sectors. He has developed automated tools, KPIs and dashboards for CXOs to improve business effectiveness, operational efficiency, and internal controls. Sameer is a chartered management accountant from UK, a chartered global management accountant, a cost and management accountant, a law graduate, a Six Sigma Green Belt and ISO 9000 auditor. He has worked with MNCs, Indian companies, and Big Four consulting firms prior to joining Kreston SGCO Advisors LLP. Friends, we couldn't have asked for a better experienced speaker with us today, where insights over the last 25 years are being gleaned into a presentation today with us. And I'm sure we'll all benefit from the same. Sameer, thank you for accommodating the time and being with us today. With that, may I leave the floor for you to take over. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Manish. It's a really pleasure to be here on this forum and share my experiences. I thank all the participants as well for joining this webinar. I'll try to focus my presentation more on the logic part of this analytic. I'm sure all of you are using various tools for carrying out data analytics. So I will leave aside the technology part. I'll focus more on the logic part and things which are essential before you use any technology. The primary reason being that when we prepare anything with the help of analytics, our whole objective is to find out the insights which will be of help to the top management or to the boards on which decisions can be taken, actions can be taken, which will achieve organizational goals. So I'll quickly move to the next slide. Yeah. So one of the most important things which we need to be aware of is where we stand when we do data analytics. And I fondly remember this particular quote of Sun Tzu, who has written the book The Art of War, that if you know your enemy and yourself, you need not fear for the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. And if you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. We also have to, if you try to extrapolate this in current times, then we can always say that, the status of enemy and yourself is dynamically changing. So, you need to be aware about the changes that are happening. And if we replace enemy with the environmental factors which have adverse or positive impact on business, similarly, in case of you can replace with the company for which you are working or the client for which you are carrying out any assignment, then things will fall in place, and you will try to be aware about the holistic picture about the factors which will have impact on your data analytics. Now, when we look at risk management, if we look, there are various objectives, but I'll focus on 3 broad objectives. One is operational effectiveness and efficiency that we want to achieve for a company or a client that we work for. We want to protect the reputation, and we want to safeguard the assets. Now, if we have to look at all this, we also need to understand that these are all interrelated. So a change that may happen in variables or factors which will have impact on operational effectiveness and efficiency will also have an impact on your reputation, or that may also have impact on your safeguarding of assets. So visualize a value chain before you so that it will be easier for you to understand the interrelationship of these 3 objectives that we want to achieve here. In terms of operational effectiveness and efficiency, there are various building blocks. It can start with a product development, then pricing, then cost management, sales, which can be product-wise, which can be geography-wise, which can be customer segment-wise. There can be manufacturing and service provisioning, depending on whether it's a manufacturing organization or service organization. Supply chain management, which will have 4 elements like procurement, logistics, warehousing, and reverse logistics. Customer care and customer churn, these are again interrelated. In terms of reputation, we can look at statutory or regulatory non-compliances, which again may come into picture because of operational inefficiencies. Social media is an important aspect. So how social media is managed by company can also have an impact. PR management in case of negative publicity, that is also an important aspect. When you look at safeguarding of assets, it's about physical assets as well as your IPRs, intellectual properties and intangible assets. So when we do data analytics, probably we may do it for a segment, or we may do it for the entire gamut of factors which affect the goals which are set by the organization. We'll go one by one in each of them, and I'll try to share my experiences. I'll try to give some anecdotes as well. So if you look at the external factors, they would be more like a PEST, as they call the political, economic, social, technological factors, legal and regulatory factors, which will have an impact in terms of customer behavior, demand, supply, competition, seasonality, and cyclical nature of some of the business transactions, and various drivers for purchase decisions. Now, all this will have an impact in terms of how goals are set at a board level, which may be in terms of sales, which may be in terms of geographic presence or geographic growth or market share, or in terms of customer satisfaction. And then that will percolate down to the KPIs of CXOs, which may reflect in the balanced scorecards or annual operating plans. That will again percolate down to operational management KPIs, which may be project specific, activity specific, or time specific. So the key here is to understand the big picture and break it down to the smallest activity level or smallest data point level. If you are able to crack it, then probably everything will fall in place, because the entire architecture of data analytics depends on what data is captured, at what point it is captured, and how accurate it is. This is a conventional flow of how data analytics is done. So you collect data, you process it, you store it, you analyze it, and then you deliver the output. And based on the output, you again try to improvise on what you want to collect, whether the same set of data you want to collect or you want to make some improvisation. I'll share with you how we have used this for developing some of the analytic tools which were used by some of the telecom companies and some marketing companies. So this is more like a bottoms-up approach here. So first we have to identify what are the variables which have an impact in terms of desired segment. So the segment can be anything. It can be sales, it can be marketing, it can be cost, it can be procurement, or other elements of supply chain management. The points that we discussed earlier. So I'll just take it back. So all these factors, these may be the end result of your analytics dashboard. But for that, what data points that you need to look at, which are the systems which you are going to use, where you are going to put your probes or data collection points, that needs to be looked at. And so if you look at this bottom content, it says non-uniform raw data sourced from various systems. Now, as most of you might have seen that there are various systems in company, and two systems may not talk to each other, or their formats and content might be different, the fields might be different. So you have to take that data and then you have to normalize it. We call it as more like as mediation, where we apply certain rules and we try to bring that into a common platform where the fields are standardized, the content is clean and standardized. And then once it is done, then that is updated in the data warehouse. Once that is done, then we have to have a standardized queries for respective segments, which will result into standard reports. Based on these reports, there can be different KPIs or exception escalation mechanism, which can get triggered. And depending on the severity which is defined or thresholds defined, an SMS may go, or a WhatsApp message may go, or an email may go to the respective level. So for example, if there's an operational issue, which may result into a loss of production, probably the first level of contact would be the plant manager or a production manager, who will get in every situation. If the threshold is set as say 1% and it exceeds 1%, then probably that message will proactively go to probably the plant head, and then subsequently it may go to the senior management as it may be defined. There may be also a scenario where the data architecture can provide facility of customizing your reports on a need basis. So you can slice and dice the data and you can generate the reports the way you want. So that flexibility also can be offered. So this thing can be done by using off-the-shelf solutions, wherein the journey would start immediately after this update data warehouse stage. Whereas in case any of you want to build your own data analytics at a lower cost, you can follow this flow. And then corrective actions, they can again be integrated into this data analytic tools that you may develop or that you may take off the shelf, wherein until corrective action gets closed, it will keep on popping up or it will keep on reminding. I'll just give an example of how data analytics can be more effective with the help of an example, so that you can come up with insights which will be of help to the management which will be of a help to audit committees. So if you look at the left-hand side, I have just narrated one scenario, which may be a typical observation in any audit of a plant, where auditor may come and say that company has bought 10 new forklifts in first month of the financial year and simultaneously stopped using 10 older forklifts. On review of maintenance cost of all operational 50 forklifts at a plant, we noted that overall cost has increased 10% year on year. Now this is factually correct, nothing wrong in that, but this is only an information which client also may be knowing. But now if you look at the right hand side, we are trying to look into how we can get insight into the real issue. So first line is right, second line also is right. The third would be the new forklifts are under warranty, so there is no maintenance cost for them. The maintenance cost of 10 replaced forklifts will be nil. So you are actually eliminating 20 and then you are left with 30 which are older. So if the cost 10% higher as compared to previous year, actually it is indicating that there is a significant rise or significant hike in the maintenance cost. So then to analyze that, you need to look at the variables like age of forklift, maintenance cost of each forklift, the make of each forklift, replacement cost of forklift, expected life cycle cost of a new forklifts if they are replaced, and overall cost saving potential. That is what management would be interested in. So we did that for one of the building material company, and what we were able to say that there were the replacement cost of the forklifts is very close to that of maintenance cost that is being incurred for those forklifts. And obviously that was running into few lakhs. So that was appreciated by audit committee and immediate action was taken. So if you go by this example, you will appreciate that here we are trying to look at what are the variables which are relevant for doing data analytics and how to sequence them and how to get the outcome of it, so that we get the end result in terms of what is the overall cost saving potential for the company. And that is what management would be interested in. Anybody can stop me anytime if you have any doubts and questions, and I'll be happy to answer that. Now, here again, the key aspects for analytics, which one need to understand. So one should not get bogged down by technology. One should also look at where they can contribute significantly and where machines cannot. So first, let's look at why we do analytics. So we need to understand what is the objective with which we are going to do the analytic for any given segment. So what is the objective? Now, obviously that has to come from us. Computers won't help us here. Then what do we require for doing that? So what is the data requirement? What queries and conditions that we can use or what we need to use? What is the criteria which may be used for filtering the data which is not relevant? What are the outliers which may appear very distracting otherwise? We have to also look at the tolerance limits, because many times there may be aberrations in the data. And when you set tolerance limits or you adjust it, then the data falls in place and you can use it. So there's always a challenge when you use the data. If it is coming from two different systems or two systems which have different timestamps, probably the source data may not match. So you have to adjust it and to see that the data is matching. Here again, you have to use human intervention more. Then when you analyze this data, you have to look at the sequence of the conditions that need to be applied with reference to the norms or KPIs that are defined. So here you can use your experience and you can also use systems. The next part, which is extremely relevant in case of analytics, is what is the decision making that is going to take place, at what time it's going to be take place, at what time it will take place, and how soon the actions will follow. So escalation, reporting, and corrective actions, which is the most important aspect. For that, you can use both your experience as well as computers or automated systems. I will elaborate on that in subsequent slides with examples. So now let's look at how to look at a particular situation. Many times when we collate the data or we look at the data points, we may look at part of it and we may not look at the holistic picture. So the experience of the business manager or the professional in that particular segment would be very relevant to understand the business dynamics and aspects which will have impact on your analysis. So the three-dimensional view of the data is very important. So let's say example, if during Ganesh Chaturthi, if somebody wants to sell murtis of Ganesha, and you place an order with a company, and the order is placed and a lot of murtis come. Probably that may still not achieve the objective, rather the sales may not take place, because which side the trunk is placed of Ganpati is an important aspect. It's a qualitative aspect. But if that is not taken into account, probably things will go wrong and the entire consignment will be unsold. So one need to understand various aspects around the data which is used for decision making. Okay. Next important aspect is data source, data quality, and data consistency. So the key question is, where do you put your probes? So in telecom, we used to put probes in a network system, a system which actually makes your calls happen. So that's a source where nothing can be lost. And it's very important data analytics that your source data has to be sacrosanct, and it should not be tampered with, or it should not be reduced, or it shouldn't be curtailed. It should be complete data. So try to get to the source and take the data from the source itself. Then the important aspect would be whether the sanity check is done for the data or not. So that sanity check is also important. There can be duplicate data sets which need to be eliminated. This is very important when you have to deal with comparison or reconciliation with your partners or with your stakeholders. At that point of time, probably there may be aberrations. So it's important to do that sanity check so that the data can be brought on the same page. And once that is ensured, then you can send the data to the next stage. Okay. We have already discussed about these points like normalizing data. So you try to bring the data and you try to convert that into information, which can be used for analysis. So the value of this particular stage is to convert that raw data into information, which can be acted upon or which can be used for further analysis. And there has to be human oversight to ensure that wherever corrective action is required, that is taken before the data is sent to the next stage. Next stage is a mediation, where you convert the data, you remove the duplicate data, you validate the data, and you try to make the fields of a standard size or standard content. The type of analytics, as we have seen, there are 4 types of analytics. One is descriptive analytics, which is largely focused on past events. So one can talk about the trend of what happened in 10 years, what happened in 5 years, what happened in particular geography in last 60 days. Those kind of things are descriptive analytics, which is good to have more as a background or a context, but they don't necessarily guide you as to what will happen in future. The next one is diagnostic analysis, where you try to correlate the one set of data with the other set of data and try to establish if there is any correlation and if it will indicate some possibility which may be desirable or which may be not desirable. The third one, and which is extensively used by various companies for their marketing campaign, is predictive analytics. it is also used by companies to retain their customers, more so in cases of service sector, where acquisition of a customer can be a very costly affair. So they can predict when the customer is likely to churn or when the customer is likely to make decision of buying. Similarly, which geographies or which particular product segments will have more sales for a given product that is launched. Prescriptive analytics is more in terms of what action can be easily taken. So this is more like a script that, if I give example of a telecom itself, if there are 1 million customers and erroneously there are certain customers who have been provided a roaming facility, which was not supposed to be provided to them. So then the immediate action would be to remove that access to them. And that action can be taken by system itself. So that would be more like a prescriptive analytics. To what extent analytics help us? So there are a few questions that one can answer and find out to what extent it's helping. So one is that to what extent it is integrated with the risk management of the company, or is it like an integrated part of a risk management team, or there is a separate data warehousing team who manages data analytics on a need basis of various stakeholders, including risk management team. Similarly, what are the predefined processes to ensure that relevant data analytics is reviewed in light of major changes of external factors and internal factors? So your company may have changes in organization structure, there may be changes in the technology that is being used, there may be changes in the workflows, there may be changes in the processes. So whether all those things get reflected in the workflow which is used for data analytics is equally important. Okay. How many times you find that while there is a data analytic team in place, tools in place, but you still have to do a separate analysis to arrive at the desired result? If that is the case, then probably you need to look at how you can integrate the data analytic effort initiative of company with your objectives. And then how it is correlated with the insights. That's most important. So whether data analytics is helping you to reach the insights which otherwise are not difficult, otherwise are difficult to achieve. Okay. In terms of decisions, where you can do automated and where you can have human intervention, I tried to put it in a table. So in terms of a prescriptive analytics, which we discussed earlier, there are standard outcomes. There is a huge set of data which is analyzed. It's of a repetitive nature, and automated actions are unlikely to affect a customer or stakeholder. So in such cases, you can always go for complete automation of decision making and corrective action for that. When it comes to predictive analytics, these are the cases where it is desirable that human intervention is used. Typically, these are the cases where problems may be complex. There may be case-to-case difference in terms of what decision need to be taken. There can be monetary compensation which may be required to be given for retaining the customer or compensating him for any non-SLA, not meeting SLAs. And personal interaction actually helps in such situations. Now I'm trying to give some variables or some aspects, and what would be the key questions that we as internal auditors or we as risk management professionals should ask so that our analytics provide us desired results. So in terms of customer acquisition, we need to look at where are we sourcing our leads from. Then what is the workflow that is built till the sales are materializing. For example, if I want to buy a car and if I go to a showroom of a car, from that point till the point I buy the car or I come to a conclusion that I don't want to buy a car, how data gets captured, how it is followed up by the respective managers or employees who are given respective roles. In case I'm not buying for some reason, is there any escalation mechanism within the company who will follow up with me and try to influence me positively to buy or change my decisions? And in terms of decisions which may be like offering discounts, waivers, or special approvals, what hierarchy is defined, how it is effective without losing or compromising controls. Otherwise, that can be a scenario where it can be misused. So key thing here is to acquire as much information which is useful is captured and analyzing it in a workflow to ensure that customer experience improves in first place. It results into quicker conversion and generates higher revenue, because this can be used for cross-selling, upselling, and that can be a good revenue stream for company. But just imagine a scenario that I go to a showroom, I inquire for a car, a consultant is assigned to me. Next time I go, a different consultant comes who does not have any background about my requirement. I have to spell it out again. Then offers are made to me, which are again not tracked. So somebody else comes and he has a different view. So all those things may affect the customer experience. So to what extent that can be streamlined and systematized, that is a focus area if you have to do analytics on customer acquisition. Customer satisfaction. Now, probably you might have come across a situation where customer satisfaction index is high and customer churn or loss of customer also is high. And the way customer satisfaction is measured, that may be exactly as per the formula which has been defined. It might be taking all the data points and still you are losing the customers. So I had analyzed this kind of situation in one of the telecom operators in Middle East. And what we found was very interesting, that the data which was picked up for customer satisfaction was only of those who responded to the customer satisfaction survey. And the customer satisfaction score was almost 86%, which is way high than what was expected in the balance scorecard for the customer service head. When we try to dig further, then we found that probably 40% customers did not even respond to the customer satisfaction survey. And there was a direct correlation of those customers who churned very quickly in a span of, if I have to give a range, probably in a week to fortnight. So if you take into account that set of data, then probably the customer satisfaction drops significantly. But the way it was defined, and if you look at who defined it, it was defined by the customer service head himself, because that was benefiting him, that was putting him in a right light with reference to balance scorecard, because his bonuses were linked with that. So you have to look at that aspect as well, as to how you measure the customer satisfaction, what factors you consider, what information you exclude, okay, and how frequently this is reviewed to ensure that nothing is missed, and any new element which needs to be factored in is factored in at a time of customer satisfaction measurement. Customer churn we have discussed earlier as well. So here this analysis tries to focus on the events or the triggers which will give an indication that customers are likely to churn. So assume that a set of customers who are frequently calling customer service number, or who are having a chat with chatbot of a company about certain complaints or grievances, or whose customer complaints are not resolved within turnaround time, which is set by company. These are the high probable customer who would churn, and then retaining them would be a challenge. Here again, to retain them, you need to understand their preferences, whether they are premium customers or they are low revenue or low ARPU customers. So you can balance your efforts and resources to ensure that 80-20 rule is followed, and your key customers are retained, and you don't put your efforts where the customers anyway are not contributing. So that's a decision which management has to take. But you can definitely find a pattern, and you can predict based on the events which you can capture in your system itself, and based on that you can proactively approach those customers before they come to a point of no return. Okay. Next can be marketing campaigns. It's very important to analyze. If you look at marketing, it can happen through out of home, it can happen through TV, it can happen through print, it can happen through radio. There can be local marketing campaigns, geography specific or festival specific. So here, which campaign is effective? That one need to understand. The one which is not that effective, one need to analyze why it is not so effective. So to do that, you can use various parameters to identify how effectiveness can be measured, or what frequency you want to set. That can be debatable, but that can be defined based on companies' products and the product life cycle. Similarly, many sales happen through various channels, which may be through PSAs, which may be through companies' staff itself, or through the outlets. So which one is more effective? Whether there is any correlation between those channels and incentives which are given, that also can be identified, and probably you can direct your efforts in a way that you can achieve more sales with the same amount of cost by channelizing it at the right place. If we come to digital marketing, which is growing every day, and probably it may take a significant chunk of overall marketing. So here it's important to understand how many impressions are being made, how many people are actually showing interest, and how many sales are taking place. Okay. So here it's important to define what are the KPIs that should be here, and whether those KPIs are relevant for a given campaign. Who monitors those KPIs, and how the performance is measured, and how quickly it is used to ensure that its KPIs are updated, changed, or the norms are changed, because time is everything in case of digital campaign. It cannot go on forever. Even the ad campaigns keep on changing as compared to OOH or television. So one has to be very responsive in this. So a near real-time monitoring is something that will help in these kind of campaigns. Otherwise, the campaign may be very ineffective or counterproductive. Product development is an important aspect for any new product launch. And typically there are 5 steps that somebody brainstorms, they define, they design, they make tests in various scenarios, and then they launch it. So just to give an example, there is one company which all of us might be knowing in one form or the other. The company is involved in making earphones or accessories for mobile. And in last 3 years, it has significantly grown because they have positioned the product as a lifestyle product, but making it affordable. They have used the brand ambassadors which would appeal the target audience, which is youth. And to do that, they have used internet very extensively. If you look at this diagram, I have highlighted on the test part, or I have put a black border around test part, because in this phase they kept on changing the approach of using the brand ambassadors, the positioning of product, and target audience. So with all this, they were able to fine-tune their marketing strategy position the product well, and they are growing significantly. Pricing. Now, pricing is another important aspect where you are in a commoditized business and with stiff competition, probably every paisa can make a difference. So you can always have a pricing which is more effective based on your analytics. Whereas if you are using analytics for, say, MPV or SEO manufacturing company, which is well established and which is considered like a premium MPV or premium SUV manufacturer. So here, even if the company is in position to offer the product to youth who would prefer a lower price, which may still fit into the budget of company, they may try to keep it above a psychological number, which may be slightly higher than what customers may desire, just to ensure that brand is not diluted. So there will be scenarios where brand will drive the decision of pricing. So we'll have to also look at how decisions can be based on branding and the situations where it can be purely transactional. If you look at supply chain management, which is extremely important in case of FMCGs or commodities which are being sold, here it's very important to again go to the very granular level and identify all the variables which will have an impact. In fact, there is a score model which is used for measuring effectiveness of supply chain management, and it measures lead time, and it actually looks at how customer satisfaction can be achieved through supply chain management. So here there can be a direct correlation of how a lead time can have an impact on warehousing facility and meeting the customer requirement. So these various factors or variables which will have impact, if they are interrelated, then you can have KPIs which are built around that. And then impact on one may have direct impact or indirect impact on other KPIs. So then you can identify the factors which are which need closer attention from the management and corrective actions. Social media, if you look today, that a customer complaint, whether it is malicious or whether it is genuine, can have a severe impact on perception about a company or its products. We have already seen that in case of certain ads around certain festivals, and suddenly influence groups become active and a public opinion gets against a particular company or a product. So in that situation, speed matters. So how soon you are able to track that things are going against the product or going against the company, and how soon you are proactively able to reach to the customers or your stakeholders so that you address the concerns and resolve the issue before it becomes a big issue and have a snowball effect. So that's again an important aspect. So here your analytics can identify the type of complaints that are coming, the resolution time, whether the legal action is good enough, or probably you may win a legal argument, you may win the case, but by that time damage is done. So would it make a sense to settle the claim by a customer by paying off a compensation, even if it is not justified, looking at the overall cost or overall impact on the brand. So all those aspects can be looked at and finalized by company. Bottom line, I would say that one has to keep analytics current with the changing business environment and the needs. So we should not get mesmerized only by the presentations which are outcome of the analytics. We have to go behind and we have to see what is the logic which is used and why it is used, and what is the insight that is expected by our audience or our end customers who are like board members or who are audit committee members. And analytics can provide great results if the framework of analytics is built with adequate business understanding. It is linked to the decision-making process. Decision-making happens in a timely manner, and there is a review to ensure that the framework remains updated and it remains current all the time. So that's it from my side, and I'm happy to take any questions or doubts.
Thanks, Amir. I think it was a wonderful presentation. I think a lot of foundational realities is something what you shared, apart from all the examples and case studies that you have shared. And I was observing that you've tried to take on the case studies which are more to do with the current times, particularly with the digital environment and the social media elements associated, apart from the more traditional ones of SCM or the forklift example which you took. I think that was very interesting. I think there was one question, rather it was more of a statement, where there's a mention about data analytics in Tally ERP. So the user has basically made a comment saying that it's one of the best tools for data analysis. Would you like to elaborate on his statement? Or
yeah, it is. I would say that it is situational, because it depends on what you want to analyze and what is the end result that you want to achieve. So if your insight is based on the data that is captured by Tally and it is correct, then you are absolutely right. About a year back, I was working on an assignment wherein Tally was working fine, and it was a manufacturing company. The Tally was not interfaced with the manufacturing ERP. So the inventory was not linked with that. It was a yarn manufacturing or textile company. So the inventory and the production figures were manually fed into Tally. So obviously it did not have enough depth and spread that would be there in case of a separate ERP which company was using. And that ERP itself was not being updated in time. So consequently, Tally is a good ERP, but the result which it provides purely depends on the input it is fed with. And if that is not the case, then obviously it will be a challenge, not only with Tally, with any other system.
right. I think I entirely endorse your perspective, because typically with today data, or rather the basic premise as what you have summarized over here, is to do with the decision-making process.
Correct.
And while a solution like Tally would have all the financial data and maybe extended information also, not all elements or data points would be available in a single solution. Even organizations using maybe SAP may not have all the data points available in a single system.
Correct.
So that's where it becomes important to build on other sources.
Correct.
Like, you talked about the forklift. The forklift might have, there could be some other data available. You from the telecom sector, but if in an organization one needs to work with certain analytics of, say, telephone cost, or maybe related to some calls being made in a forensic environment, the data would all be available in a PDF file. And translating that maybe, extremely difficult to have.
There would be, I'll just add to this point. There are softwares available who can convert the PDF file data into the format that you desire. I mean, it's the same content you can find in an Excel file, which you can analyze. So we have worked on similar scenario. Again, in my stint in Middle East, where we had to look at, we were engaged by a government agency, Ministry of Finance of one of the country, and they wanted to minimize their expenditure, public expenditure. One of the segment was telecom. We came up with startling observations. One is that there were telecom services which were availed in year 2000. Now, if you go back in year 2000, all of us might be using 64 kbps circuits from telecom operators, and the prices would be fairly high going by that time. If you look at in year 2017-18, probably nobody is using 64 kbps circuits. Probably people are using in Mbps at the least, or Gbps in general, and the prices are significantly lower. The analytics helped us identify almost 1/3 of the data services which were historically obtained, which were kept live, where regular customers have done away with that, but government organizations kept them live for last so many years, and they were being paid at a higher rates which were set in year 2000 without any reduction, and it was as much as 1/3 of the overall revenue of a telecom company for a year. So
I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
There was just one other, point which comes to my mind. Basically, in the government, right? Particularly from an idea perspective, the CAG is one of the largest users.
Right.
And we all familiar with the Bhopal disaster of 1983. Maybe not the younger team who may be participating today, but otherwise the Bhopal disaster was a major sort of event where a lot of people lost their lives. Now, the remuneration or compensation that was being paid to all the different, people who suffered in that case, there were a lot of claims that were there. So the team within the CAG, they basically dealt with manual information and data.
Right.
So they wanted to identify whether there are duplicate payments going out and so on and so forth. So they made a big effort of translating that manual information into Excel, and then imported it into IDEA, and then identified a lot of duplicates across.
Correct.
And based on that, they defined a new system altogether, which is termed as the Rahat Lekha.
Correct.
And that is formed a core component of any disaster-based compensations or remuneration going forward on.
Correct.
So I think it's a question that when we are talking about data analytics, we would, like you mentioned, you need to start with the basics, right?
Yeah.
You started off with the idea of being aware.
Correct.
Right? And it was a classic case, where you took the art of war as a base. That if you're not aware, being aware is one. Yes, I might have studied CA at a point of time. I might have learned whatever was there. But if you've not kept ourselves updated, right, within no time are we going to be redundant.
True.
We won't understand what is there. And that's where I really like the case studies that you took up, which were to do with digital marketing and social media. Because these are sort of, so to say, new animals. And unless somebody has been exposed to that adequately well, there would always be, an issue with that. So I think that continuous learning is something which is a core to a professional's life. And series is primarily in that context that, we are seeking to just have all this wealth of knowledge that like you brought to the table today. I think it's extremely engaging and interesting for all of us to take up from there. I'm not seeing any other question available. So if there are no further questions from participants, would you like to have any clarification sought from Samir? There's somebody who's raised a hand. Nirav has raised his hand. I'll just allow him to talk. Nirav, I am unmuting you. You can raise your, you can unmute yourself. You can unmute yourself and you could say, I have unmuted you.
Hello, I have unmuted.
Yeah, Nirav.
Hi, Nirav.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I have a question that there is a huge data in Tele, and we need to analyze that data. So there is any specific tool that can be used?
Actually, there are Tally experts who can help you in this, because there is no separate tool per se, but they can customize certain queries for you based on your requirement. and that will solve your problem. There is no separate tool per se.
If I may add to what Samir has mentioned, Nirav, see, idea as a tool, idea data analysis as a tool, has got a direct ODBC connect to any of the any of the solutions. So users technically they link to the Tally data and then take it further for analysis as such. Right. There's one more question from Molly Sinha that's regarding where can we learn about the framework for analysis of Bhopal gas disaster. Samir, I'll just take that call because
please,
from my
please.
side. Molly, basically, there was the framework of Rahat Lekha is something which would be available with the CAG. We'll try and see if we can arrange for it, and maybe we'll have it shared with you all. There's no immediate site that I can think of where we can access it, but this was what was shared by the team which had worked on the same. Right. Are there any other questions that you all have? Okay. Thank you very much for all of you all to join us today for this session. It's been an interesting evening. Thank you, Samir, for making an excellent presentation. I'm sure that the foundational realities and the building blocks that you have dealt with in your presentation today would enable us to really work with data analytics with a much broader mind and not start with a tool, but start with the business reality that we are seeking to work on. I think that's a fundamental truth. And many times, once you have a tool, you get so excited by it that you miss out on the larger picture on.
True.
I think that's an excellent position and point that you brought up, loud and clear. And thank you very much once again to all the participants and Samir for making it today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Yeah.
Samir, thank you very much for this lovely evening and the presentation that you have made, live. And I am sure the participants have benefited. And I think we look forward to the next session next week, next Wednesday, 7 to 8 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.